I tried to search in the why it's not there. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Dina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Dina Bhutale Swayam Rupa Katahmayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yuta Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavam Scha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sadvatutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitam Scha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripri Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bo. So in the Srimad Bhagavatam there are 4 seed verses called the Chatter Sloki Bhagavatam, were spoken by Lord Krishna to Brahma at the beginning of the creation of the universe, just after the creation of the universe. And from those shlokas have expanded the other 18,000 shlokas that we have available on this planet. According to the Tattva Sandarbha by Jiva Goswami, he cites evidence that there are longer versions of the Srimad Bhagavatam available in other planetary systems. And this is the beginning of the Chatur Sloki, is on the Canto 2, Chapter 9, text number 33. Ahamevasame bhagre nanyad yat sarasat param paschadaham yade tachcha yo vishishyeta sosmyaham. Brahma Hare Krishna. Brahma, it is I, the personality of Godhead, who was existing before the creation when there was nothing but myself. Nor was there the material nature, the cause of this creation. That which you see now is also I, the personality of Godhead. And after annihilation, what remains will also be I, the personality of Godhead. Purport. We should note very carefully that the personality of Godhead is addressing Lord Brahma and specifying with great emphasis himself, pointing out that it is he, the personality of Godhead, who existed before the creation. It is he only who maintains the creation, and it is he only who remains after the annihilation of the creation. Brahma is also a creation of the Supreme Lord. The impersonalist put forth the theory of oneness in the sense that Brahma, also being the same principle of I, because he is an emanation from the I, the absolute truth, is identical with the Lord, the principle of I, and that there is thus nothing more than the principle of I, as explained in this verse. Accepting the argument of the impersonalist it is to be admitted that the Lord is the creator I, and that the Brahma is the created I. Therefore, there is a difference between the two I's, namely the predominator I and the predominated I. Therefore, there are still two I's, even accepting the argument of the impersonalist. But we must note carefully that these two I's are accepted in the Vedic literature, Catur Upanishad, in the sense of quality. The Catur Upanishad says, Nitya nityanam chetanas chetananam, eko bahunam yovididhati kaman. The creator I and the created I are both accepted in the Vedas as qualitatively one, but one, because both of them are nityas or chaitanas. But the singular I is the creator I, and the created eyes are of plural number, because there are many eyes, like Brahma and those generated by Brahma. It is simple truth. The Father creates or begets a son, and the Son also creates many other sons. And all of them may be one as human beings, but at the same time from the Father, the Son and the grandsons are all different. The Son cannot take the place of the Father, nor can the grandsons. Simultaneously, the Father, the Son, and the grandson are one and different also. As human beings, they are one, but as relativities, they are different. Therefore, the relativities of the Creator and the created, the predominated and the predominated, have been differentiated in the Vedas by saying that the predominator I is the feeder of the predominated eyes. And thus, there is a vast difference between the two principles of I. So the verse begins, aham evasameva agre. And Srila Prabhupada is pointing out that some philosophers try to merge the I's and say that, well, there's only one I, principle of I. But although that may be, there's also a plurality of I's that emanate from the Creator. And they're same in quality, but different in quantity. And in function, the Creator maintains all the created I's. Confirmed also, we hear here in the Katha Upanishad, Nityo Nityanam Chaitanas Chaitananam Eko Bahunam Yovididhati Kaman. That there are a plurality of eternal living beings, and they're being maintained. We're being fed, but we can't feed ourselves. Everything we get is supplied to us by a higher power, and that's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In another feature of this verse, no one can deny the personalities of both the Lord and Brahma. Therefore, in the ultimate issue, both the predominator and predominated are persons. This conclusion refutes the conclusion of the impersonalists that in the ultimate issue, everything is impersonal. This impersonal feature, stressed by the less intelligent impersonalist school, is refuted by pointing out that the predominator I is the absolute truth and that he is a person. The predominated I, Brahma, is also a person, but he is not the absolute. For realization of one's self in spiritual psychology, it may be convenient to assume oneself to be the same principle as the absolute truth, but there's always the difference of the predominated and the predominator, as clearly pointed out here in this verse, which is grossly misused by the impersonalists. Brahma is factually seeing face to face his predominator Lord, who exists in his transcendental eternal form, even after the annihilation of the material creation. The form of the Lord, as seen by Brahma, existed before the creation of Brahma, and the material manifestation with all the ingredients and agents of material creation are also energetic expansions of the Lord. And after the exhibition of the Lord's energy comes to a close, what remains is the same Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, the form of the Lord exists in all circumstances of creation, maintenance, and annihilation. The Vedic hymns confirm this fact in the statement, Vasudevo va idam agra asinna brahmana cha shankara eko narayana asinna brahmani shanaha, etc. Before the creation, there was none except Vasudeva. There was neither Brahma nor Shankara. Only Narayan was there and no one else. Neither Brahma nor Ishana. Sripad Shankaracharya also confirms in his comments on the Bhagavad Gita that Narayan, or the personality of Godhead, is transcendental to all creation, but that the whole creation is the product of Yakta. Therefore, the difference between the created and the creator is always there, although both the creator and the created are of the same quality. So in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, avyakto vyakta. He mentions in the 9th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita that some people think that at one point he is unmanifested, and then he becomes manifested and then unmanifested again. But this verse refutes that point. Can I see that 9th chapter, please? Just give me a Gita. Excuse me, 7th chapter it is. Hare Krishna, Hare. Here it is, number 24, 724. Avyaktam vyaktim apanam manyante mama budhayaha param bhavam ajananto mamavyayam anutamam. That's 724. Unintelligent men who do not know me perfectly think that I, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, was impersonal before and have now assumed this personality. Due to their small knowledge, they do not know my higher nature, which is imperishable and supreme. Purport: those who are worshippers of demigods have been described as less intelligent persons, and here the impersonalists are similarly described. Lord Krishna in his personal form is here speaking before Arjuna, and still, due to ignorance, impersonalists argue that the Supreme Lord ultimately has no form. Jamunacharya, a great devotee of the Lord in the disciplic succession of Ramanujacharya, has written a very appropriate verse in this connection. He says, Tvang Shila Rupa Charita Parama Prakrishtai Satvena Satvikataya Prabalaish Chashastrai Prakyata Daiva Paramarta Vidam Mataishcha Naivasura Prakritaya Prabhavanti Bodhum. My dear Lord, devotees like Vyasadeva and Narada know you to be the personality of Godhead. By understanding different Vedic literatures, one can come to know your characteristics, your form, and your activities, and one can thus understand that you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But those who are in the modes of passion and ignorance, the demons, the non-devotees, cannot understand you. They are unable to understand you. However expert such non-devotees may be in discussing Vedanta and the Upanishads and other Vedic literatures, it is not possible for them to understand the personality of Godhead. From the Stotra Ratna 12. In the Brahma Samhita, it is stated that the personality of Godhead cannot be understood simply by study of the Vedanta literature. Only by the mercy of the Supreme Lord can the personality of the Supreme be known. He's got a famous verse from the Katha Nayamatma pravachanena labhyo na bahuna shutena. Yami vaisha vrinute tena labhyas tasyaisha esha vrinute tanum swam. Nayamatma pravachanena labhyo na medaya na bahuna shutena. Na bahuna shutena. Yami vaisha vrinute tena labhyas tasyaisha eva esha vrinute tanum swam. That's Nayamatma pravachanena labhya. So it's the verse is saying that one cannot understand the Lord by so many expert talks or speeches or by hearing so many for a long period of time or being very intelligent. Only the person who knows the Lord is the one to whom the Lord reveals himself. He chooses to reveal himself. So there's no possibility of one asserting oneself and therefore seeing God. But when the Lord is pleased to reveal himself, he reveals himself. And this is also brought out in the Srimad Bhagavatam by Lord Brahma in his prayers to Krishna. He says, Tapite deva padam bujadvaya prasada leshanu grihita evahi janati tattvam bhagavan mahimno nachanya eko picharam vachinvan. And that is that only when one gets, he says, even with a trace of mercy from the Supreme Personality of Godhead's lotus feet, one can understand him. But through other means, it's impossible. He says, Atapite teva padam bhujadvaya prasada lesha. Prasada lesha means just a tiny bit of mercy from the Lord. A little bit of mercy. Alesha means just a trace. Prasada. Lesha. Anugrahita evahi. Janati tattvam bhagavan mahimno na chanya ekam picharo vachimban. But even very intelligent people, after a long period of time, through other processes, cannot understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Could you give out a few book stands in case anybody needs a book stand for their books? Make them more comfortable. Anyone who has a Gita out, they can give them a book stand just to make them more comfortable. Okay. Continuing in the purport, in the Brahma Samhita, it is stated that the personality of Godhead cannot be understood simply by study of Vedanta literature. Only by the mercy of the Supreme Lord can the personality of the Supreme be known. What's that verse? We're talking Brahma Samhita. Advaitam, Achutam, Anadim, Anantarupam, Adyam, Purana, Purusham, Navayovanam cha. Vedeshu, Durlabam, Adurlabam, Atma Bhaktau, Govindamadi, Purusham, Tamaham. But he'll get you one. Don't worry. Bring him a Gita too. Look, he shared his Bhagavad Gita. What a nice devotee. We need more devotees like you around here. Thank you for coming. You can leave that. Someone else will come and use it.
I have it on my phone.
And you have it on your phone. Very good. Okay, so we heard also Brahma Samhita says a similar thing. Advaitam, Achutam, Anadim, Anantarupam, Adyam, Purana, Purusham, Navayovanam cha, Vedeshu, Durlabam. It's very difficult to understand the Lord through the Vedas. Vedeshu, Durlabam, Adurlabam. It's not difficult to attain. Adurlabam, Atma Bhaktau, but by the association of a devotee. This is 724 on page 335 at the top. You're welcome. Persons who are under the impression that the Absolute Truth is impersonal are described as abhudayaha, which means that they do not know the ultimate feature of the Absolute Truth. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is stated that supreme realization begins from the impersonal Brahman and then rises to the localized Supersoul. But the ultimate word is the Absolute Truth. The ultimate word in the Absolute Truth is the personality of Godhead. So Srimad Bhagavatam, that's from the first canto, second chapter, 11th verse, which says, Vedanti tattva vidas tattvam yajnanam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavan iti shabdyate. And it says that Absolute Truth is known in three features: Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. Same Advaya Gyan Tattva, one truth, but in three divisions. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is stated that the supreme realization begins from the impersonal Brahman and then rises to the localized Supersoul, but the ultimate word in the Absolute Truth is the personality of Godhead. Modern impersonalists are still less intelligent, for they do not even follow their great predecessor, Shankaracharya, who has specifically stated that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Impersonalists, therefore, not knowing the Supreme Truth, think Krishna to be only the son of Devaki and Vasudeva, or a prince, or a powerful living entity. This is also condemned in the Bhagavad Gita 9:11. Avajananti ma mudha manushim tanamashritam. Only the fools regard me as an ordinary person. The fact is that no one can understand Krishna without rendering devotional service and without developing Krishna consciousness. The Bhagavatam 10:14-29. Can I have that book, please? Atapite deva padam bhujadvaya prasada leshanu grihita evahi janati tattvan bhagavan mahimno na chanya eko picharam bachinvan. I just quoted that verse. That's in 10th canto, 14th chapter. My Lord, if one is favored even by a slight trace of the mercy of your lotus feet, he can understand the greatness of your personality. But those who speculate to understand the Supreme Personality of God are unable to know you, even though they continue to study the Vedas for many years. One cannot understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna or his form, quality, or name simply by mental speculation or by discussing Vedic literature. One must understand him by devotional service. When one is fully engaged in Krishna consciousness, beginning by chanting the Mahamantra, which goes like this: Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Then only can one understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Non-devotee impersonalists think that Krishna has a body made of this material nature and that all his activities, his form, and everything are Maya. These impersonalists are known as Mayavadis. They do not know the absolute truth. And this verse says, this is the verse from the prayers by Lord Brahma, aforementioned, about how a trace of mercy only. That's 10:14:29. The purport, this translation is quoted from Srila Prabhupada's Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, chapter 6, text 84. Lord Krishna is very eager to bestow his mercy upon the conditioned living beings who are uselessly struggling with the Lord's illusory energy Maya. The conditioned soul struggles for happiness through sense gratification and for knowledge through mental speculation. Both processes ultimately bring him to a morose and helpless condition. If the conditioned soul surrenders to the lotus feet of Lord Krishna and thus acquires even a trace of his causeless mercy, the whole situation is changed and the living entity can begin his real life of bliss and knowledge in Krishna consciousness. So in the Gita, Krishna says, Daiva hi esha gunamayi mama maya duratyaya mameva ye prapadyante mayam etam tarantite. Taranti, you can cross beyond the material world. How? Just surrender to Krishna. Otherwise, to overcome Maya is impossible, insurmountable. But just surrender to Krishna and you can achieve that. So, continuing in the Gita, 7:24, one cannot understand, I read that, non-devotee impersonalists think that Krishna has a body made of this material nature and that all his activities, his form, and everything are Maya. These impersonalists are known as Mayavadis. They do not know the ultimate truth. The 20th verse clearly states, Kamais taister hritagyana prapadyante nyadevataha. Those who are blinded by lusty desires surrender unto the different demigods. It is accepted that besides the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there are demigods who have their different planets, and the Lord also has a planet. As stated in the 23rd verse, Devan Deva Yato Yanti Madbhakta Yanti Mamapi. The worshippers of the demigods go to the different planets of the demigods, and those who are devotees of the Lord go to the Krishna Loka planet. Although this is clearly stated, the foolish impersonalists still maintain that the Lord is formless and that these forms are impositions. From the study of the Gita, does it appear that the demigods and their abodes are impersonal? Clearly, neither the demigods nor Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, are impersonal. They are all persons. Lord Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he has his own planet, and the demigods have theirs. Therefore, the monistic contention that ultimate truth is formless and that form is imposed does not hold true. It is clearly stated here that it is not imposed. From the Bhagavad Gita, we can clearly understand that the forms of the demigods and the form of the Supreme Lord are simultaneously existing, and that Lord Krishna is Sakchit Ananda, eternal blissful knowledge. The Vedic literature confirms that the supreme absolute truth is knowledge and blissful pleasure. Vijnanam Anandam Brahma. Brihad Aranyaka Upanishad. Everyone say Vijnanam Anandam Brahma. And that he is the reservoir of unlimited auspicious qualities. Ananta Kalyana Gunatmako Sao. Everyone say. And in the Gita, the Lord says that although he is Aja, unborn, he still appears. Look up that verse. These are the facts that we should understand from the Bhagavad Gita. We cannot understand how the Supreme Personality of Godhead can be impersonal. The imposition theory of the impersonalist monist is false as far as the statements of the Gita are concerned. It is clear herein that the Supreme Absolute Truth, Lord Krishna, has both form and personality. You know, you have to read the Gita in order to have faith. And if Younga sent me this quote, he said he was going to send me, I'm going to look it up just 1 second, see if he sent it in. Div, if you're watching, you better have sent it. Otherwise, you're really in big trouble. Let's see. There it is. Teachings of the Lord Kapila 2:17. Do you happen to have that? Teachings of the Lord Kapila? Let's see. Oh, okay. He sent me the picture of the page. Let me see if I can see it. I certainly can. Okay, here it is. It says, the Madhyama Adhikari also has special taste for chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. He is also anxious to live in places like Vrindavan, Dwarka, and Mathura, places where Krishna lived. Of course, it is a fact that Krishna, being God, has his residence everywhere. He even resides within every atom. Andantarasta paramanu chayantarastam. Nonetheless, he has special places of residence like Vrindavan, Dwarka, and Mathura. Therefore, a devotee is anxious to live in those places. Increasing one's love for God is a gradual process, and the first ingredient is faith. Without faith, there is no question of progress in Krishna consciousness. That faith is created after reading Bhagavad Gita carefully and actually understanding it as it is. Unless one reads Bhagavad Gita, there is no question of faith in Krishna. He read that to me on the way over here, and now he texted it to me. It's highlighted in the book. You want to hear it again? To all the great souls who have showed up here tonight, here and on the internet. Without faith, there is no question of progress in Krishna consciousness. That faith is created after reading Bhagavad Gita carefully and actually understanding it as it is. Unless one reads Bhagavad Gita, there is no question of faith in Krishna. One must have faith in the words of Krishna, particularly when Krishna says, abandon all dharmas and surrender unto me. I will give you all protection. If we study the Bhagavad Gita as a literary treatise and then throw it away, that is not faith. Faith is explained by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. Shraddha Shabde Bishwas Kahi Sudrida Nishchay Krishna Bhakti Koila Sarva Karma Krita Hoy. By rendering transcendental service, loving service to Krishna, one automatically performs all subsidiary activities. This confident, firm faith, favorable to the discharge of devotional service, called Shraddha. There it is in black and white. You can't have faith in Krishna unless you study the Bhagavad Gita. That's why this is Chad country. Giriraj Maharaj said, this is Chad country. We should have an advertisement like they used to have for Marlboro. This is Marlboro country. That's a kind of cigarette. We'll say, this is Chad country. Yeah, Chad country. Okay.
There's the verse where there's Kabila.
He found a verse for, he just, oh. Okay, I'm continuing in the Gita. It's hard to tell where I'm continuing from because we got a lot of books going here today. It's a great opulence. You can just, we have these shastras. At some points in history, it's really hard to get shastra. World's flooded. It's hard to, there's no electricity. There's no books around. We just happen to be in a period right now. Yes, it's Kali Yuga, but we're in a period now where we have in our homes, this was unheard of. Even 100 years ago, everyone in their homes has all the books that you need for enlightenment. Even Abraham Lincoln used to have to walk miles and miles to get to a library. That's why libraries are there. Yes? What to speak of the internet?
Not only in their homes, we can have all the books in our pocket.
In your pocket, yeah. in your homes and in your pocket. So don't take it for granted. And get your basis in Bhagavad Gita. Become expert in Bhagavad Gita. Go over it and over it and over it and over it and over it until you always think in terms of Bhagavad Gita, see through the Bhagavad Gita. And you get faith in Krishna from the Bhagavad Gita. From there you can make advancement.
It took 8 years for me to understand fully.
The Bhagavad Gita?
Yeah. 8 years.
Well, 8 years is not bad.
To finally sink in, you know?
Nice, nice. Although this is clearly stated, the foolish impersonalists still maintain that the Lord is formless and that these forms are impositions. From the study of the Gita, does it appear that the demigods and their abodes are impersonal? Clearly, neither the demigods nor Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, are impersonal. They're all persons. Lord Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he has his own planet, and the demigods have theirs, which we heard before. Prabhupada gave the proof, because Krishna says, Yanti Deva Vrata Devan Pitrin Yanti Pratirvrata Bhutan Yanti Bhuteja Yanti Mam Yajinopi Mam, which means that if you worship the demigods, you'll go to the demigods. If you worship the Pitris, you'll go to the Pitraloka. So that means that all these places are as tangible as the various places in your own town. There's a post office, there's a Safeway, there's all these places. And so you have to make your goal to go back home, back to Godhead. Tangible. One thing, when this impersonalist idea, it dissuades people from leaving the material world, because there's nothing to go for. In the Gita, Krishna gives in the 15th chapter, Purushottam Yoga, which means there's a Supreme Person there. And he states, Tatat patam tat parimargitavyam yasmin katana nivratanti bhuya tameva chadyam purusham prapadye yatak pravriti prashrita parani. After you've cut down your attachment to the material world, you have to have somewhere to go. In impersonalist philosophy, there's nowhere to go because there's no relationship. Krishna is the reservoir of all relationships, and that's what the living entity has to have. He has to develop a relationship with Krishna. Otherwise, from an imagined position of liberation, he'll fall down to lack of variety and lack of taste. But there's taste, there's real taste in relationship with Krishna, which can be had by chanting the holy name of the Lord offenselessly. That's something I realized is a great study. Because during the morning program, often, and in many temples, we recite the 10 offenses, and everyone just says them, but we don't really think about it. The last couple times we were here together, we stopped and we said, what does this mean? What does that mean? And I realized afterwards, it's a real meditation, the 10 offenses, that we should cultivate it, look at the details of these things, should write about each one and think about what it means, because deliberately I should avoid the 10 offenses. Because if you can constantly chant Hare Krishna and avoid the 10 offenses against the holy name of the Lord, then you can, just from that, you can go back to Godhead. That's why there's also Panchratrik Vidhi, the deity worship and so forth, because most people can't remain steady because there's so much contamination in this world that from day to day we pick up contamination. And therefore, Panchratrik Vidhi gives us deity worship and a clean schedule of Vaidhi regulations to live by so that we keep ourselves clean in body and mind. And there is a nice combination when you're worshiping the deity and also chanting Hare Krishna. What to speak of distributing the Bhagavat Dharma to everybody. Gornitai, yeah, that's their program. Okay. Where was I? Therefore, the monistic contention? Okay. Therefore, the monistic contention, the ultimate truth is formless, and that form is imposed does not hold true. It is clearly stated here that it is not imposed. From the Gita, we can clearly understand that the forms of the demigods and the form of the Supreme Lord are simultaneously existing, and that Lord Krishna is Satchidananda, eternal blissful knowledge. The Vedic literature confirms that the Supreme Absolute Truth is knowledge and blissful pleasure, Vijnanam Anandam Brahma. And he is the reservoir of unlimited auspicious qualities. Ananta Kalyana Gunatmako Sao. And in the Gita, the Lord says that although he is Aja, unborn, he still appears. What's that verse? 4.6. Ajopi san avyayatma bhutanam ishvaropi san. Rest. Prakritim swam atishtaya sambhavami yuge yuge. Sambhavam yatma maya. So the translation to this verse, we'll say together. Let's see the Sanskrit again. All together. Ajopi san avyayatma bhutanam ishvaropi san prakritim swam adishtaya sambhavam yatma maya. Translation is, although I am unborn and my transcendental body never deteriorates, and although I am the Lord of all living entities, I still appear in every millennium in my original transcendental form. It's nice thinking about how the Lord is the Supreme Personality of God and he has an eternal transcendental form, because naturally our mind goes to him then. When there's an impersonal idea, there's nowhere to go. And one then has to go to sense gratification. And then one becomes captured. But then, yes, Krishna Sundara Prabhu? Akila Rasamrita Murti. Krishna is the emporium of all rasas, available from Krishna. This is the point. Yeah. So, just finishing this purport from 724. We cannot understand how the Supreme Personality of Godhead can be impersonal. The imposition theory of the impersonalist monist is false as far as the statements of the Gita are concerned. It is clear herein that the Supreme Absolute Truth, Lord Krishna, has both form and personality. All contentious issues can be answered by Bhagavad Gita as it is. And oftentimes people put forth preposterous ideas about what is the Supreme, but they have to reference the Gita in order to have validity. Right? Okay. Everyone okay? Better than okay. Way better than okay. It's like after Janmashtami and Vyasa Puja, 2 Vyasa Pujas, and all the time we had together and everything, coming back in, it's like, we're dying in the desert, coming back in for a little Shastra. So I'm trying to get in as much as possible to fill us back up again. Yes?
Dandavats Maharaj. The point which you mentioned, that actually the Supreme Lord cannot be understood just by intelligence or by study of the Vedanta literature, and it comes through mercy of the Supreme Lord and the mercy of devotees, right? That is very sobering. I was wondering if there is some way to put forth these points to people who are very logical or even atheistic, that beyond a point, just through intelligence, you cannot understand. Because when we try to explain this point, we are accused of having a blind faith, of not being scientific, of not having any rationale. So I was wondering if there is a way to explain this point that, okay, because the topmost thing for them is intelligence, so how we can tell them it's something beyond it?
Well, the best thing are Hare Krishna festivals. A place where people can come and hear the chanting of Hare Krishna and take Krishna Prasadam and see the beautiful temple. Like, this temple is becoming more and more opulent. And when you come in, there's spiritual sense gratification here. I was a little bit affected by it when I came in, which is a miracle because I'm barely affected by anything. But when I come in here and you see the opulence, the flowers, you don't see these kinds of things elsewhere in the atmosphere. You can feel it. Therefore, the intellectual explanation, the philosophical explanation, many people will miss. But if they can have exposure to the loving association of devotees, prasadam, festivals, things like that, then it opens their heart because they feel something. They have to tasted it on a different level. explain. Explaining to people who are unwilling to hear or unable to hear is prohibitive also. Of course, if you sense that there's a spark there and you're trying to fan it, you do the best you can. But look at the conversation between Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and Gopinath. Gopinath Acharya in the Chaitanya Charitamrita and the liberation of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. At first, the Bhattacharya and all his students were arguing with Gopinath Acharya about Lord Chaitanya being the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And they told him, as soon as you get a little mercy, then you'll understand. Sarvabhauma said, well, how do you know you understand? He said, because we have the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and later you'll get that. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu didn't try to force the philosophy on Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, but you'll notice that he was very submissive to him, because Sarvabhauma was a big man. If you look in the Encyclopedia Britannica, you'll see his name listed as one of the great logicians of all time. And he had a following, he had written books, he could memorize books, he was an expert. And here was this young sannyasi. He's like, what do you mean he's God? He couldn't understand it. So he wanted to instruct Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in how to be a better sannyasi. Because he even wanted him to change the line of sannyasis he was in to give him a better standing. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the other devotees were angry at Sarvabhauma, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, no, he's trying to help me. Please let him help me. And so Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya took Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to a place where they could sit and talk, and for 7 days he expounded on the Vedanta, and he explained the Vedanta Sutra. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu didn't say a word. He didn't try to argue or convince him or anything. He was just quiet. And then Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said, mostly students will ask questions because there's a lot of complexity in this. And do you not understand it, what I'm saying? And he said, well, I understand the Vedanta Sutra, but your explanations are like clouds that are covering the real meaning because you're speculating. And Sarvabhauma was shocked by his answer. And then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Sarvabhauma, then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explained his version of the Vedanta Sutra in terms of Sambandha, Abhideya, and Prayojana, and he also got into discussion, Rasika Vaishnava. And they also got into discussion of the Atmarama verse, which Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was able to give 8 various explanations, and then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, then not touching any of the ones that Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya had given, gave unique ones and went far beyond that. And from the adroitness and just the character of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, gradually Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya began to change his mind and heart. I say oftentimes that people are stubborn or they're fixed in a certain way. I remember down in Palo Alto, there used to be this Indian man who would come by every time we had the Harinam Sankirtan there. And at first, he used to yell at me because he'd see me leading the kirtan. And he would yell things and say, this is no good, you should go home, and things like that. And then a couple times, but every time I saw him, I treated him with respect. And then he started becoming slightly neutralized when we'd see him. And then finally, I shook his hand, and I realized that he was an alcoholic. Every time I'd meet him, he had alcohol in his breath, and he was just kind of an angry person. But then one night, he hugged me. And then the next time we went out there, he brought his family to meet me. And then it became like he'd come search out the Harinam party, and it was like I didn't tell him any philosophy. I didn't try to convince him and say, no, this is, you don't understand this or that, or explain something. But I just didn't resist him, and I just gave him some affection. And over time, he changed his mind. And it was the Harinam that he would see and things like that. Shraddha and I had an experience in Santa Cruz one day. There was a group of us distributing books, and she was helping me distribute books, and I stopped a man with his young daughter. He must have been about 40 or 50, and he was very cantankerous. And I went on to explain the book, and he was sort of half accepting it, looking at it, and then I told him it would be nice if he gave a donation for the book. And then he blew up at me, and he gave the book back, and he said, I knew you guys just wanted money and everything like that. And he went on for maybe 10 minutes expounding to his daughter. He wasn't even talking to us, he was talking to his daughter about how there's no difference between God and the light post over there. Everything's one, and religion's caused all the problems in the world. And we were just kind of humoring him, right? And he went on and on and on. And he came to the end of his diatribe, and then he goes, all right, here's $5. And he gave $5 and took the book back and handed it to his daughter and said, okay, you can read it. True, right? Absolutely true. Yeah, we need a witness for that one. But oftentimes it's irrational. People may have an irrational, a causeless reason, seemingly, for rejecting that there's a Supreme Personality of Godhead and so forth. So it may require repeated application of kindness and giving prasadam and inviting people to things and that kind of contact. And then when the heart changes a little bit, then the philosophy can come in.
And good kirtan.
Good kirtan is one of the... When people hear the holy name, they become affected. Yes? Yes?
So, I just wanted to add two things. One is that when people at work also tell me the same thing, blind faith versus, I'm trying, because most of them are engineers. So I just tell them that you need to use the right instruments to measure. For example, if the current flowing somewhere is like thousands of amperes, and if you have a simple ammeter that can't go beyond 10 amperes, you can't measure it, the ampere is going to burst. Similarly, when we are talking about God, your intelligence is not the right, your intelligence, the material intelligence is not the right one. They get it, they get it. Then they start thinking that there's something beyond this.
If you could circumscribe the Supreme with your intelligence, then he wouldn't be the Supreme, you'd be the Supreme. And if a dog runs into Mountain View and looks around, he doesn't comprehend the telephone wires going through, and he doesn't see a cellular tower and think, oh, that's for cellular telephone. He thinks, I don't know what he thinks of these other things, but
Where's the next ground square?
yeah, these kinds of things are not comprehensible at a certain level. Yeah, that's a nice point.
And second thing, I just wanted to confirm your suggestion that you gave, that bring them to festivals. Like this just Janmashtami during Mangala Artik time when everybody was doing the japa. There was a gentleman who was standing right by the kitchen. He was just standing there, and I was chanting outside the kitchen. And so I just went up to him and I said, are you looking for something? He said, I need some water. So I just brought him over here to get some water for him. And then we just started chanting and started talking. And so he was asking about, so I was just asking, where are you from and do you chant? What brought you here? He said, no, I'm not a devotee. My wife is a devotee. She's sitting inside. And he was like, quote unquote, a Hindu from Tamil Nadu. But he said, I follow the Sikh religion. So I said, that's fine. I mean, you also use the names. You also believe in the name of the Lord. So he was very happy with the fact that somebody agreed that, and didn't blaspheme his religion. And then he got talking. He asked me, how has the name affected you? And I talked to him about Prabhupada's books and all that. And then, very quickly he just said, all right, get me a japamala. I might as well chant. And then he chanted. And that same night, I was very surprised that he said, I'm going to go away. I said, we're going to have fun the whole day. You can stay here. He said, no. I just brought my wife here for Mangalati. I'll go away. He was here for the midnight.
He came from the midnight.
Yeah, as well, yeah. So it's just amazing how sometimes people are just ready and they come to a festival site, they see so many people,
Yeah.
and little care and attention.
Little care and
yeah,
attention.
yeah.
Yeah. Nice points. Okay. I'm continuing in the Srimad Bhagavatam, I think. Second canto, 9th chapter, text 33. You're right on it. Whoever's in the booth is really on top of it today. The other feature of the statement is that the Supreme Truth is Bhagavan, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Personality of Godhead and His kingdom have already been explained. The kingdom of Godhead is not void as conceived by impersonalists. The Vaikuntha planets are full of transcendental variegatedness, including the four-handed residents of those planets, with great opulence of wealth and prosperity, and there are even airplanes and other amenities required for high-grade personalities. Therefore, the personality of Godhead exists before the creation, and He exists with all transcendental variegatedness in the Vaikuntha lokas. The Vaikuntha lokas also accepted in the Bhagavad Gita as being of the Sanatana nature are not annihilated even after the annihilation of the manifested cosmos. Those transcendental planets are of a different nature altogether, and that nature is not subjected to the rules and regulations of material creation, maintenance, and annihilation. The existence of the personality of Godhead implies the existence of the Vaikuntha lokas, as the existence of a king implies the existence of a kingdom. In various places in the Srimad Bhagavatam and in other revealed scriptures, the existence of the personality of Godhead is mentioned. For example, in Srimad Bhagavatam 2.8.10, Maharaj Parikshit asks, Sachapi yatra purusho vishvastityudpavapyayaha muktvatma mayam mayeshaha shete sarva guhashayaha. How does the personality of Godhead, the cause of creation, maintenance and annihilation, who is always freed from the influence of the illusory energy and is the controller of the same, lie in everyone's heart? Similar also is a question of Viduras. Tatvanam bhagavamste sham katidha pratisankramaha tetramam ka upasiran ka uswid anusherate. From Bhagavatam 3.7.37. Sridhar Swami explains this in his notes. During the annihilation of the creation, who serves the Lord lying on the Shesha, etc.? This means that the transcendental Lord, with all His name, fame, quality, and paraphernalia, exists eternally. The same confirmation is also in the Kashi Kanda of the Skanda Purana in connection with Dhruva Charita. It is said there, Na Chavante piyad bhakta mahat yam pralayapati ato chuto kide loke sa eka sarvago vyaha. Even the devotees of the personality of Godhead are not annihilated during the period of the entire annihilation of the material world, not to speak of the Lord Himself. The Lord is ever existent in all three stages of material change. The impersonalist adduces no activity in the Supreme, but in this discussion between Brahma and the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Lord is said to have activities also, as He has His form and quality. The activities of Brahma and other demigods during the maintenance of the creation are to be understood as the activities of the Lord. The king or the head executive of a state may not be seen in the government offices, for he may be engaged in royal comforts. Yet it should be understood that everything is being done under his direction and everything is at his command. The personality of Godhead is never formless. In the material world, he may not be visible in his personal form to the less intelligent class of men, and therefore he may sometimes be called formless. But actually, he is always in his eternal form in his Vaikuntha planets, as well as in other planets of the universes as different incarnations. The example of the sun is very appropriate in this connection. The sun in the night may not be visible to the eyes of men in the darkness, but the sun is visible wherever it has arisen. It has risen. That the sun is not visible to the eyes of the inhabitants of a particular part of the earth does not mean that the sun has no form. In the Brihat Aranyaka Upanishad, there is the hymn, Atmai Vedam Agra Asit Purusha Vidha. This mantra indicates the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, even before the appearance of the Purusha incarnation. In the Bhagavad Gita 15:18, it is said that the Lord Krishna is Purushottam because he is the Supreme Purusha, transcendental even to the Purusha Akshara, or the Purusha Shara. Verse? Yasmat charamati toham aksharadapi chotamaha atosmi loki vedecha pratita purushottamaha. Yeah, he's beyond the fallible, the infallible. He's the Supreme Person, unassailable from all angles. Nice to know. One who knows this information, Krishna says at the end of that chapter, Iti guyatamam shastram idam uktva mayanaka etam budva buddhiman syat krita kritash chaparata. That person will have all good fortune in their life. Krita kritash chaparata. All opulence, good fortune. Iti guyatamam shastram. This is the essence, the secret in all the Shastra. Iti guyatamam shastram idam ukva mayanaka etad buddva. That person becomes intelligent. Buddhiman. He becomes buddhiman. His intelligence comes up. One who understands this point. About the personality of Godhead. Being beyond everything and the creator of everything. Etad buddva buddhiman syat krita kritash chabarata. And all his endeavors will know perfection. So this is very important information. It is the information. Okay, he is the Supreme Purusha, transcendental even to the Purusha Akshara and the Purusha Shara. The Akshara Purusha, or the Mahavishnu, throws his glance over Prakriti or material nature, but the Purushottama existed even before that. The Brihat Aranyaka Upanishad therefore confirms the statement of the Bhagavad Gita that Lord Krishna is the Supreme Person, Purushottama. In some of the Vedas, it is also said that in the beginning only the impersonal Brahman existed. However, according to this verse, the impersonal Brahman, which is the glowing effulgence of the body of the Supreme Lord, may be called the immediate cause, but the cause of all causes, or the remote cause, is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Lord's impersonal feature is existent in the material world because by material senses or material eyes, the Lord cannot be seen or perceived. One has to spiritualize the senses before one can expect to see or perceive the Supreme Lord. But he is always engaged in his personal capacity. And he is eternally visible to the inhabitants of Vaikuntha Loka eye to eye. Therefore, he is materially impersonal, just as the executive head of the state may be impersonal in the government offices, although he is not impersonal in the government house. Similarly, the Lord is not impersonal in his abode, which is always nirasta kuakam, as stated in the very beginning of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Therefore, both the impersonal and personal features of the Lord are acceptable, as mentioned in the revealed scriptures. This personality of Godhead is very emphatically explained in the Bhagavad Gita in connection with the verse Brahmano hi pratishtaham amritasya vyasya cha shashvatasya chatarmasya sukhasya ikantikasya cha. Therefore, in all ways, the confidential part of spiritual knowledge is realization of the personality of Godhead and not his impersonal Brahman feature. One should therefore have his ultimate aim of realization, not in the impersonal feature, but in the personal feature of the absolute truth. The example of the sky within the pot and the sky outside the pot may be helpful to the student for his realization of the all-pervading quality of the cosmic consciousness of the absolute truth. But that does not mean that the individual part and parcel of the Lord becomes the supreme by false claim. It means only that the conditioned soul is a victim of the illusory energy in her last snare. To claim to be one with the cosmic consciousness of the Lord is the last trap set by the illusory energy or Daivi Maya. Even in the impersonal existence of the Lord, as it is in the material creation, one should aspire for personal realization of the Lord. And that is the meaning of paschataham yere tachcha yo vishisheta sosmyaham. I refer back to the verse we're hearing the commentary. This paschataham yere tachcha. So paschat means at the end, aham, I, the personality of Godhead, yet, all of these, etach, creation, cha, also, ya, everything, avishisheta, remains, sa, that, asmi, I am, aham, the personality of Godhead. After annihilation, that remains will also be I, the personality of Godhead. So again, Prabhupada says, even the impersonal existence of the Lord, as it is in the material creation, one should aspire for personal realization of the Lord. And that is the meaning of paschataham yare tachcha yo vishisheta sosmyaham. Brahmaji also accepted the same truth when he was instructing Narada. He said, Soham te bihitas tata Bhagavan Vishvabhavanaha. Tata. There is no other cause. That's Bhagavatam's 2.750. Look at this. There it is. The personality of Godhead is the 2.750. Next one. My dear son, Tata. My dear son, I have now explained in brief the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is creator of the manifold worlds, manifested worlds. Without him, Hari, the Lord, there are no other causes of the phenomenal and nominal existences. So here, Brahmaji also accepted the same truth when he was instructing Narada. So Brahmaji to Narada says, Soham te bihitas tata, Bhagavan Vishvabhavana. There is no other cause of all causes than the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari. Therefore, this verse, Aham Eva, never indicates anything other than the Supreme Lord. And one should therefore follow the path of the Brahma Sampradaya, or the path from Brahmaji to Narada to Vyasadeva, etc., and make it a point in life to realize the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, or Lord Krishna. This very confidential instruction to the pure devotees of the Lord was also given to Arjuna and to Brahma in the beginning of the creation. The demigods like Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshvara, Indra, Chandra, and Varuna are undoubtedly different forms of the Lord for execution of different functions. The different elemental ingredients of material creation, as well as the multifarious energies, also may be of the same personality of Godhead, but the root of all of them is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. One should be attached to the root of everything rather than being bewildered by the branches and the leaves. This is the instruction given in this verse, right to the top. And if you meditate on Krishna, then your life is perfect. Everything becomes clear when one accepts Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the source of all the other forms of the Lord, and whose abode is the topmost. Goloka namni nijadamni tale tatasya. Yes?
Prabhupada would say that the mind wants resolve.
The mind wants resolve.
And if the mind does not have resolve, then there is no bliss.
I also read in the Gita where Prabhupada says that the mind becomes morose for lack of a goal. Pardon?
The mind is looking for reposing itself in an ultimate goal, and without that ultimate goal, it keeps actually reposing itself in different goals, different points.
Yene ravindaksha vimuktamaninas tvayasta bhavat avashudha buraya. Yene, I'm sorry, I diverted into another verse. I'm sorry, what is the third one? Huh? Aruya Krishna parampadam tata patantyato nadrita yushmadangrayaha, which is a verse spoken by the demigods to Lord Krishna within the womb. And they said that any imagined type of liberation that doesn't involve a relationship with the lotus-eyed Supreme Personality of Godhead is born of impure intelligence, and it's imagined liberation. One will fall down from that position. Only the kind of liberation in which one reawakens one's loving relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead is permanent. We're reading the chatter Sloki Bhagavatam. I don't think anybody else in Silicon Valley is doing this right now, or in America. And we're going on, because no one can stop us. Text 34, Ratirtam yat pratiyeta na pratiyeta chatmani tadvidyadat manomayam yata bhaso yata tamaha. O Brahma, whatever appears to be of any value, if it is without relation to me, has no reality. Know it as my illusory energy, that reflection which appears to be in darkness. Purport, in the previous verse it has already been concluded that in any stage of the cosmic manifestation, its appearance, its sustenance, its growth, its interactions of different energies, its deterioration and its disappearance, all has its basic relation with the existence of the personality of Godhead. And as such, whenever there is forgetfulness of this prime relation with the Lord, and whenever things are accepted as real without being related to the Lord, that conception is called a product of the illusory energy of the Lord. Because nothing can exist without the Lord, it should be known that the illusory energy is also an energy of the Lord. The right conclusion of dovetailing everything in relationship with the Lord is called Yoga Maya, or the energy of union. And the wrong conception of detaching a thing from its relationship with the Lord is called the Lord's Daivi Maya, or Mahamaya. Both the Mayas also have connections with the Lord, because nothing can exist without being related to Him. As such, the wrong conception of detaching relationships from the Lord is not false, but illusory. Misconceiving one thing for another thing is called illusion. For example, accepting a rope as a snake is an illusion, but the rope is not false. The rope as it exists in the front of the illusion person is not at all false, but the acceptance is illusory. Therefore, the wrong conception of accepting this material manifestation as being divorced from the energy of the Lord is illusion, but it is not false. And there's still an effect. It's not because it's illusory we don't suffer. This example is given by Maitreya to Vidura in the 3rd canto, that the living entity who suffers in this material world is suffering as one does in a dream. When in a dream someone threatens to cut your head off and then proceeds with the process of cutting your head off, there's a little bit of angst, to say the least, in the dream. And one may even struggle or kick one's feet. I was sitting next to a man on an airline once, and he started having some dream, and he started thrashing and kicking, and there was some water sitting there, and he just knocked it off, and then he woke up and he kind of looked around and he go, "Oh, sorry," and you can see that something's going on there. Last night I went out with the flashlight because I heard the raccoons getting feisty out there. And I have a cow in my garden. It's not a real cow, but it's a cow made out of it's an iron pattern of the cow that's stuck into the garden. But when I shined my flashlight on it, the shadow behind it looked like a big raccoon. So I kind of jumped. I said, "There he is!" And I kept back and forth, and he's moving. And then I realized it's the silhouette of the cow behind in the darkness. Nonetheless, I was encountering the raccoon. I thought it was a raccoon, but it was actually a shadow. But still, there was a moment there. It was like, there he is. And then I saw, oh, it's just a shadow. But I still jumped back because those raccoons are getting a little feisty back there. Yeah, I think they want to take over. They want to take possession. Okay. And this illusory conception is called the reflection of the reality in the darkness of ignorance. The reflection of reality in the darkness of ignorance. Anything that appears as apparently not being produced out of my energy is called Maya. The conception that the living entity is formless, or that he is the Supreme Lord, or that the Supreme Lord is formless, is also illusion. In the Bhagavad Gita 2.12, it was said by the Lord in the midst of the battlefield that the warriors standing in front of Arjuna himself, and even the Lord, had all existed before. They were existing on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, and they would all continue to be individual personalities in the future also, even after the annihilation of the present body, and even after being liberated from the bondage of material existence. Nate vaham chatunasam natvam nemi janatipa nachaiva nabavishyama sarvivayam ataparam. Is that correct? Or did I go into another? Yeah. In all circumstances, the Lord and the living entities are individual personalities, and the personal features of the Lord and the living beings are never abolished. Only the influence of the illusory energy, the reflection of light in the darkness, can, by the mercy of the Lord, be removed. In the material world, the light of the sun is also not independent, nor is that of the moon. The real source of light is the Brahmajyoti, which diffuses light from the transcendental body of the Lord, and the same light is reflected in varieties of light: the light of the sun, the light of the moon, the light of the fire, and the light of electricity. So the identity of the self as being unconnected with the Supreme Self, the Lord, is also illusion. And the false claim, I am the Supreme, is the last illusory snare of the same Maya, or the external energy of the Lord. The Vedanta Sutra in the very beginning affirms that everything is born from the Supreme. And thus, as explained in the previous verse, all individual living entities are born from the energy of the Supreme Living Being, the personality of Godhead. Brahma himself was born from the energy of the Lord, and all other living entities are born from the energy of the Lord through the agency of Brahma. None of them has any existence without being dovetailed with the Supreme Lord. The independence of the individual living entity is not real independence, but it is just the reflection of the real independence existing in the Supreme Being, the Lord. The false claim of supreme independence by the conditioned souls is illusion, and this conclusion is admitted in this verse. It's been admitted, so we can all accept it. Just take it. We're not independent. Persons with a poor fund of knowledge become illusioned, and therefore the so-called scientists, physiologists, empiric philosophers, etc., become dazzled by the glaring reflection of the sun, moon, electricity, etc., and deny the existence of the Supreme Lord, putting forward theories of different speculations about the creation, maintenance, and annihilation of everything material. The medical practitioner may deny the existence of the soul in the physiological bodily construction of an individual person, but he cannot give life to a dead body, even though all the mechanisms of the body exist even after death. The psychologist makes a serious study of the physiological conditions of the brain, as if the construction of the cerebral lump were the machine of the functioning mind. But in the dead body, the psychologist cannot bring back the function of the mind. These scientific studies of the cosmic manifestation or the bodily construction independent of the Supreme Lord are different reflective intellectual gymnastics only, but at the end they are all illusion and nothing more. All such advancement of science and knowledge in the present context of material civilization is but an action of the covering influence of the illusory energy. The illusory energy has two phases of existence, namely the covering influence and the throwing influence. By the throwing influence, the illusory energy throws the living entities into the darkness of ignorance. And by the covering influence, she covers the eyes of men with a poor fund of knowledge about the existence of the Supreme Person who enlightened the Supreme Individual Living Being Brahma. The identity of Brahma with the Supreme Lord is never claimed herein. And therefore such a foolish claim by the man with a poor fund of knowledge is another display of the illusory energy of the Lord. The Lord says in the Bhagavad Gita 16:18 through 20, Asuram yonamapana mudham janmani janmani mam aprapyaiva kaunteya tatoyanti adamam gatim. Attaining repeated birth amongst the species of demoniac life, O son of Kunti, such persons can never approach me. Gradually they sink down to the most abominable type of existence. Trividam narakasyedam dwaram nashanam kama krodas tata lobas tasmad etat trayam tyajet. There are 3 gates leading to this hell: lust, anger, and greed. Every sane man should give these up, for they lead to the degradation of the soul. And 22. Eter vimukta kaunteya tamo dvais tribir nara acharat atmana shreyas tatoyati paramgatim. The man who has escaped these 3 gates of hell, of son of Kunti, performs acts conducive to self-realization and thus gradually attains the supreme destination. And then, of course, Ya Shastra Vidamutsrija Vartate Kam Akarata Nasa Siddhim Avapnoti Nasukam Na Param Gatim. He who discards scriptural injunctions and acts according to his own whims attains neither perfection nor happiness nor the supreme destination. Tasmat Shastram Pramanam Te Karya Karya Vivastitau Gyatva Shastra Vidhanoktam Karma Kartum Iharhasi. One should therefore understand what is duty and what is not duty by the regulations of the scriptures. Knowing such rules and regulations, one should act so that he may gradually be elevated. Case closed. Yeah, definitely. Then, so the Lord says in the Bhagavad Gita 18:16 through 18, the demoniac persons who deny the existence of the Lord are thrown more and more into darkness of ignorance. And thus such demoniac persons transmigrate life after life without any knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The sane man, however, is enlightened in the disciplic succession from Brahmaji, who was personally instructed by the Lord, or in the disciplic succession from Arjuna, who was personally instructed by the Lord in the Bhagavad Gita. He accepts this statement of the Lord. Aham sarvasya prabhavo mattak sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajante mam buddha bhava samanvitaha. The Lord is the original source of all emanations, and everything that is created, maintained, and annihilated exists by the energy of the Lord. The sane man who knows this is actually learned, and therefore he becomes a pure devotee of the Lord, engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Congratulations to all of you. Although the reflectory energy of the Lord displays various illusions to the eyes of persons with a poor fund of knowledge, the sane person knows clearly that the Lord can act even from far, far beyond our vision by his different energies, just as fire can diffuse heat and light from a distant place. In the medical sense of the ancient sages known as the Ayurveda, there is definite acceptance of the Lord's supremacy in the following words. Jagad yonir anichasya chid anandaika rupinaha pumsosti prakritir nitya pratich chayeva basvataha. Achetanapi chaitanya yogena paramatmanaha akarod vishwamakilam anityam natakakritim. There is one supreme person who is the progenitor. This is from the Ayurveda, by the way. There is one supreme person who is the progenitor of this cosmic manifestation and whose energy acts as prakriti, or the material nature, dazzling like a reflection. By such illusory action of prakriti, even dead matter is caused to move by the cooperation of the living energy of the Lord. and the material world appears like a dramatic performance to the ignorant eyes. The ignorant man, therefore, may be a scientist or physiologist in the drama of Prakriti, while the sane person knows Prakriti as the illusory energy of the Lord. By such a conclusion as confirmed by the Bhagavad Gita, it is clear that the living entities are also a display of the Lord's superior energy, Paraprakriti, just as the material world is a display of the Lord's inferior energy, Aparaprakriti. The superior energy of the Lord cannot be as good as the Lord, although there is very little difference between the energy and the possessor of the energy, or the fire and the heat. Fire is possessed of heat, but heat is not fire. This simple thing is not understood by the man with a poor fund of knowledge who falsely claims that the fire and heat are the same. This energy of the fire, namely heat, is explained here as a reflection and not directly fire. Therefore, the living entity represented by the living entities is the reflection of the Lord and never the Lord himself. Being the reflection of the Lord, the existence of the living entity is dependent on the Supreme Lord, who is the original light. This material energy may be compared to darkness, as actually it is darkness, and the activities of the living entities in the darkness are reflections of the original light. The Lord should be understood by the context of this verse. Non-dependence of both the energies of the Lord is explained as Maya or illusion. Non-dependence of both the energies of the Lord is explained as Maya or illusion. Non-dependence of both the energies of the Lord is explained as Maya or illusion. No one can make a solution of the darkness of ignorance simply by the reflection of light. Similarly, no one can come out of the material existence simply by the reflected light of the common man. One has to receive the light from the original light itself. The reflection of sunlight in the darkness is unable to drive out the darkness, but the sunlight outside the reflection can drive out the darkness completely. In darkness, no one can see the things in a room. Therefore, a person in the dark, afraid of snakes and scorpions, although there may not be such things, is afraid. But in the light, the things in the room can be clearly seen, and the fear of snakes and scorpions is at once removed. Therefore, one has to take shelter of the Lord, the light of the Lord, as in the Bhagavad Gita or the Srimad Bhagavatam, and not the reflective personalities who have no touch with the Lord. No one should hear Bhagavad Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam from a person who does not believe in the existence of the Lord. Such a person is already doomed. And any association with such a doomed person makes the associator also doomed. According to the Padma Purana, within the material compass, Vishnu Shakti Paraprokta Kshetragyakya Tatapara. That's not the verse I was thinking of. According to the Padma Purana, within the material compass, there are innumerable living material universes, and all of them are full of darkness. Any living being, beginning from the Brahmas, there are innumerable Brahmas and innumerable universes, to the insignificant ant, are all born in darkness, and they require factual light from the Lord to see him directly, just as the sun can be seen only by the direct light of the sun. No lamp or man-made torchlight, however powerful it may be, can help one see the sun. The sun reveals itself. Therefore, the action of different energies of the Lord, or the personality of Godhead himself, can be realized by the light manifested by the causeless mercy of the Lord. The impersonalists say that God cannot be seen. God can be seen by the light of God and not by man-made speculations. Here, this light is specifically mentioned as Vidyat, which is an order of the Lord to Brahma. This direct order of the Lord is a manifestation of his internal energy. Oh, here it is. Here, this light is specifically mentioned as Vidyat, which is an order by the Lord to Brahma. This is very powerful. This direct order of the Lord is a manifestation of his internal energy, and this particular energy is the means of seeing the Lord face to face. Not only Brahma, but anyone who may be graced by the Lord to see such merciful direct internal energy can also realize the personality of Godhead without any mental speculation. So this is marked, double marked, and tagged in my book. This direct order of the Lord is a manifestation of his internal energy. So there's a way in which one, as being pointed out here, one can take advantage of the light through the disciplic succession and the presentation of the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. Not only that, there's the implication here that one can take an order from someone in the disciplic succession. In the case of our engagement in the Sankirtan movement, for instance, one may align oneself in such a way that one may take some service. Prabhupada said that he got an order from his spiritual master the moment he met him. And that was to help spread Krishna consciousness in the West. And his spiritual master reiterated that order later on, just before he left the planet. And Prabhupada emphasizes that by adhering himself to that order, he was able to manifest the Krishna consciousness movement all over the world, and obviously performed some kind of a magic show. People ask, can you do any kind of magic or mystic power? And he'd say, here it is. Which is it's remarkable. It's mind-boggling what he did. Traveled all over the world and spread the Krishna consciousness movement. So anyone can have that same experience by connecting to the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead as it comes down through the disciplic succession. And in our case, help spread the Krishna consciousness movement and also take full advantage of tat karma pravartanat, all the kinds of various activities that have been prescribed to us by the acharyas and that are particularly prescribed by one's personal guide, spiritual master. And then one is directly connected to this internal energy of the Lord. And one can experience that for oneself. So the verse, Ritertam yat pratyeta na pratyeta chatmani tad vidyarat mano mahayam yatabhaso yatatamaha, emphasizes how we should never be disconnected from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's the great trick of life, is how to always remain in contact with the Supreme. See everything in relationship to the Supreme and use everything in his service. How's everybody now? Getting better by the second, right? This is historic. We're reading the Catur Sloki Bhagavatam. Right here in the middle, we're camped out right here in the middle of Silicon Valley, and we're reading the Catur Sloki Bhagavatam from this place. This will have a big effect on the whole universe. Text 35. Yata mahanti bhutani bhuteshu chavachesvanu pravishtanya pravishtani tatateshu nateshvaham. O Brahma, please know that the universal elements enter into the cosmos and at the same time do not enter into the cosmos. Similarly, I myself also exist within everything created, and at the same time, I exist outside of everything. Purport. The great elements of material creation, namely earth, water, fire, air, and ether, all enter into the body of all manifested entities. The seas, mountains, aquatics, plants, reptiles, birds, beasts, human beings, demigods, and everyone materially manifested, and at the same time, such elements are differently situated. In the developed stage of consciousness, the human being can study both physiological and physical science, but the basic principles of such sciences are nothing but the natural elements and nothing more. The body of the human being and the body of the mountain, as also the bodies of the demigods, including Brahma, are all of the same ingredient, earth, water, etc. And at the same time, the elements are beyond the body. The elements were created first, and therefore they entered into the bodily construction later. But in both circumstances, they entered the cosmos and also did not enter. Similarly, the Supreme Lord, by his different energies, namely the internal and external, is within everything in the manifested cosmos, and at the same time he is outside of everything, situated in the kingdom of God, Vaikuntha Loka, as described before. This is very nicely stated in the Brahma Samhita 537 as follows. Everyone together. Ananda chinmaya rasa pratibhavitabis tabirya eva nijarupa taya kalabi goloka eva nivasatya kilatma bhuto govinda mari purusham tamaham bhajami. I worship the personality of Godhead Govinda, who by his expansion of his internal potency of transcendental existence, knowledge, and bliss, enjoys in his own and expanded forms. Similarly, he enters into every atom of the creation. This expression of his plenary parts is also more definitely explained in the same Brahma Samhita 535 as follows. Ekopya saura charitum jagadanda koting yat shaktirasti jagadanda chayaya danta andantarasta paramanu chayantarastam govindamari purusham tamaham bhajami. I worship the personality of Godhead Govinda, who by one of his plenary portions enters into the existence of every universe and every particle of the atoms, and thus unlimitedly manifests his infinite energy all over the material creation. There it is. Ekadesha stitastyagner joshna vishtaraniyata. What's the rest? Tatedam akilam jagat. Sorry, my mind's been chasing that verse since about 5 pages ago, and it just caught up. The impersonalist can imagine or even perceive that the Supreme Brahman is thus all-pervading. Esha desha sitakstyagnir jotsna vistaraniyata parasya brahmana shaktis tatedam akilam jagat. Yeah, it's like how just as from the sun, this is an analogy given in the Vishnu Purana, just as from the sun, we can experience the energy all over the universe. We know the sun's presence because of its energy everywhere and its effects. So similarly, we can experience all over this creation the energy of the Lord. Isn't that nice? How we can be fully Krishna conscious at any moment. I remember when I first came in contact with the Bhagavad Gita and Prabhupada's writings, and he said that not a blade of grass moves without the will of the Supreme. And I would see the wind blow and things move, and I think, yeah, that's coming from the... I remember when I came to the temple too, Hare Krishna, when I came to the temple first, and there was some devotees having kirtan, and they were chanting, then I started jumping. And I was thinking, every time they started jumping, they're seeing Krishna. They just saw him again. The impersonalist can imagine or even perceive that the Supreme Brahman is thus all-pervading, and therefore they conclude that there is no possibility of his personal form. Herein lies the mystery of his transcendental knowledge. This mystery is transcendental love of Godhead, and one who is surcharged with such transcendental love of Godhead can, without difficulty, see the Supreme Godhead in every atom and every movable and immovable object. And at the same time, he can see the personality of Godhead in his own abode, Goloka, enjoying eternal pastimes with his eternal associates who are also expanses of his transcendental existence. This vision is the real mystery of spiritual knowledge as stated by the Lord in the beginning. Sarahasyam tad angam cha. This mystery is the most confidential part of the knowledge of the Supreme, and it is impossible for the mental speculators to discover by dint of intellectual gymnastics. The mystery can be revealed through the process recommended by Brahmaji in his Brahma Samhita 538 as follows. Premanjana churita bhakti vilochanena santaksadaya vardayeshi vilokayanti yam shama sundaram achintya gunasarupam Govindamari Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. I worship the original personality of Godhead, Govinda, whom the pure devotees, their eyes smeared with the ointment of love of Godhead, always observe within their hearts. This Govinda, the original personality of Godhead, is Shamasundar with all transcendental qualities. Therefore, although he is present in every atom, the Supreme Personality of Godhead may not be visible to the dry speculators. Still, the mystery is unfolded before the eyes of the pure devotees because their eyes are anointed with love of Godhead. And this love of Godhead can be attained only by the practice of transcendental loving service to the Lord and nothing else. The vision of the devotees is not ordinary. It is purified by the process of devotional service. In other words, as the universal elements are both within and without, similarly the Lord's name, form, quality, pastimes, entourage, etc., as they are described in the revealed scriptures, or as performed in the Vaikuntha Lokas far, far beyond the material cosmic manifestation, are factually being televised in the heart of the devotee. The man with a poor fund of knowledge cannot understand, although by material science one can see things far away by means of television. Factually, the spiritually developed person is able to have the television of the kingdom of God always reflected within his heart. That is the mystery of knowledge of the personality of Godhead. The Lord can award anyone and everyone liberation, mukti, from the bondage of material existence. Yet he rarely awards the privilege of love of Godhead, as confirmed by Narada, muktim tadati karichit smana bhakti yogam. This transcendental devotional service of the Lord is so wonderful that the occupation keeps the deserving devotee always wrapped in psychological activities without deviation from the absolute touch. Poetry. Thus, love of Godhead developed in the heart of the devotee is a great mystery. Wow. Ramaji previously told Narada that the desires of Brahmaji are never unfulfilled because he is always absorbed in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Nor has he any desire in his heart save and except the transcendental service of the Lord. That is the beauty of the mystery of the process of Bhakti Yoga. As the Lord's desire is infallible because he is achyuta, similarly the desires of the devotees in the transcendental service of the Lord are also achyuta, infallible. This is very difficult, however, for the layman to understand without knowledge of the mystery of devotional service, as it is very difficult to know the potency of touchstone. As touchstone is rarely found, a pure devotee of the Lord is also rarely to be seen, even amongst millions of liberated souls. Koteshu api mahamune. Kotishu api mahamune. Out of all kinds of perfections. That's from Muktanam api siddhanam, Narayana Parayana, Sudulabha Prashantatma, Kotishu api mahamune. 6th canto, near the end. Out of all kinds of perfections attained by the process of knowledge, yoga perfection in devotional service is the highest of all and the most mysterious also. Even more mysterious than the 8 kinds of mystic perfection attained by the process of yogic performances. In the Bhagavad Gita 1864, the Lord therefore advised Arjuna about this bhakti yoga. Sarvaguyatamam bhuya, shrinume paramam vachaha. Just hear from me again about the most confidential part of the instructions in Bhagavad Gita. The same was confirmed by Brahmaji to Narada in the following words. Idam Bhagavatam nama yan me bhagavatoditam sangraho yam vibhutinam tvam etad vipulikuru. Brahmaji said to Narada, whatever I have spoken to you about the Bhagavatam was explained to me by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and I am advising you to expand these topics nicely so that people may easily understand the mysterious bhakti yoga by transcendental loving service to the Lord. It is to be noted here that the mystery of bhakti yoga was disclosed to Brahmaji by the Lord himself. Brahmaji explained the same mystery to Narada. Narada explained it to Vyasa. Vyasa explained it to Shukadev Goswami. And the same knowledge is coming down in the unalloyed chain of disciplic succession. If one is fortunate enough to have received the knowledge in the transcendental disciplic succession, surely he will have the chance to understand the mystery of the Lord and that of the Srimad Bhagavatam, the sound incarnation of the Lord. That's 3 out of the 4 chatter sloki. We're going to have to call someone and get more time. We need a night of Brahma here. 36. Etavadeva jignasyam tattva jignasunatmanaha anvaya vyatarekabhyam yatsyat sarvata sarvada. A person who is searching after the Supreme Absolute Truth, the personality of Godhead, must certainly search for it up to this, in all circumstances, in all places, space and time, and both directly and indirectly. Purport. To unfold the mystery of Bhakti Yoga as is explained in the previous verse is the ultimate stage of all inquiries or the highest objective for the inquisitive. Everyone is searching after self-realization in different ways, by karma yoga, by jnana yoga, by dhyana yoga, by raja yoga, by bhakti yoga, etc. To engage in self-realization is the responsibility of every living entity developed in consciousness. One who is developed in consciousness certainly makes inquiries into the mystery of the self, of the cosmic manifestation, and of the problems of life in all spheres and fields, social, political, economic, social, religious, moral, etc., and their different branches. But here the goal of all such inquiries is explained. The Vedanta Sutra philosophy begins with this inquiry about life, and the Bhagavatam answers such inquiries up to this point, or the mystery of all inquiries. Lord Brahma wanted to be perfectly educated by the personality of Godhead, and here is the answer by the Lord, finished in 4 nutshell verses from Aham Eva to this verse, Etavad Eva. This is the end of all self-realization processes. Men do not know that the ultimate goal of life is Vishnu, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead, due to being bewildered by the glaring reflection in the darkness. And as such, everyone is entering into the darkest region of material existence, driven by the uncontrolled senses. Na te vidu swartakatim hi vishnum rashraye bahar artamanina andaya tandar upaniyamanas te tantram te pisha tantram urudam nibadaha. That if one who doesn't know that the ultimate goal of life is Lord Vishnu, and who takes shelter of other similarly blind people, end up in a ditch of material existence, being led into a ditch, and they become tied by these strong cords of the material nature. The whole material existence has sprung up because of sense gratification. Desires based principally on the sex desire, and the result is that in spite of all advancement of knowledge, the final goal of all activities of the living entities is sense gratification. But here is the real goal of life, and everyone should know it by inquiries put before a bona fide spiritual master, expert in the science of Bhakti Yoga, or from a living personality of Bhagavatam life. Everyone is engaged in various kinds of scriptural inquiries, but the Srimad Bhagavatam gives answers to all the various students of self-realization. This ultimate objective of life is not to be searched out without great labor or perseverance. One who is imbued with such sincere inquiries must ask the bona fide spiritual master in the disciplic succession from Brahmaji, and that is the direction given here. Because the mystery was disclosed before Brahmaji by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the mystery of all such inquiries regarding self-realization must be put before such a spiritual master who is directly the representative of the Lord, acknowledged in that disciplic succession. Such a bona fide spiritual master is able to clear up the whole thing by evidence from the revealed scriptures, both direct and indirect. Although everyone is free to consult the revealed scriptures in this connection, one still requires the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master, and that is the direction of this verse. The bona fide spiritual master is the most confidential representative of the Lord, and one must receive direction from the spiritual master in the same spirit that Brahmaji received it from the personality of Godhead Lord Krishna. The bona fide spiritual master in that bona fide chain of disciplic succession never claims to be the Lord himself, although such a spiritual master is greater than the Lord in the sense that he can deliver the Lord by his personally realized experience. The Lord is not to be found simply by education or by a good fertile brain, but surely he can be found by the sincere student through the transparent medium of the bona fide spiritual master. Can you believe that we ran out 2 hours like that? It seemed like a couple of seconds. And we even started I think we started on time. These are so satisfying, these purports from the second canto and the Chatter Sloki Bhagavatam. This is direct information about the personality of Godhead, presented with perfect logic and understanding from the heart and mind of a pure devotee realized in God consciousness, Krishna consciousness. And now we'll take a few reflections. Save time for about 10 minutes to hear anything reflected back that you heard during the course of the last hour and 50 minutes of hearing. Yes? Vittal.
Maharaj, there was one point where Srila Prabhupada in the purport mentions that the head of the government is impersonal in the offices, government offices, but he is very much personal in his residence. Not the exact words, but I think...
Yeah, I remember you gasped when you heard that. Wow! Those are nice. Yeah, pick those up. Yeah. Really helpful.
And there was one more which said, the reflection of the sun in the darkness of the room cannot dispel the darkness, but it's only the sun outside the room which can remove the darkness. That was wonderful. But I had one question on 35, where it says that the elements are inside in the cosmos and yet not inside. They did not. I can understand this with respect to the Supreme Person, but I'm not able to understand how the material elements are also entering into the cosmos and yet away from it. Because I thought this material world is where all these elements are. Beyond this material world, in the spiritual world, these elements are not present. So, did I get something way off?
Well, they're manifest in various forms. That was described in that section. And then there's also a reservoir of those elements outside. Om kratos smara kritam smara, kratos smara kritam smara. Description of how the body will be burned to ashes and merged with the totality of air and so forth. Other more details than that I don't have on the tip of my brain. Let's see if there's more commentary. You had a point?
Basically, I was just marveling at genius of Srila Prabhupada, that this whole purport, that reflection point, Prabhupada is smashing the Mayavad philosophy also, Pratibim philosophy. Basically, he's just smashing out kind of from all different angles, quoting Vishnu Puran and other, and also giving a solution when he says, but, when you read that last sentence.
Yeah.
So he's giving completely inclusive, whatever all different acharyas have said. So it's such a genius. Thank you for reading these verses.
Yeah, I'm sorry I didn't come to the end of it. We need a little more time.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji, for the class.
We should have, like, on every Ekadashi, we should come in all day long. Start at 4:30. We should come in at 4:30 a.m. and stay past midnight. Okay, we'll come in Ekadashi and go all night long. Yes.
I like the point that you said the mind becomes morose because of a want of a goal.
Yes.
Because of want of a goal. And I also like the point of Maitreya said to Vidura, I think in the third canto, that the living entity is suffering in the material world and it's just like a dream. and considering the material world as it's real, but considering it as unreal is actually illusion. So
Yeah. Nice points. Thank you very much. Kuladeepa.
Hare Krishna. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada was mentioning, when the sun rises, we can see it, but it doesn't matter. Like if somebody doesn't see sun, it's not like that sun is not present. It is present, so we cannot see. Lord is present, but we cannot see him. That's why we consider, okay, Lord is impersonal. He doesn't have any form, but sun has a form. And another point, Srila Prabhupada was, smashing the Mayavada philosophy that the snake and rope, the logic. And he was mentioning that it's illusion to consider the rope as a snake. Rope is also not false. So the Mayavada concept that, this material world is false, Brahma Satya Jagat Mithya, that's dispelled by this argument.
Yeah. Nice points. You had your hand up?
Prabhu, I had a couple of things. One, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada was telling, if you want to see the sun, you cannot see with a torchlight or small lights. So that means, the one which we had a discussion earlier, if you want to see Krishna, we have to see with our smaller intelligence. We think that I can see the bigger light, which it's not possible. That's one thing. But to that, based on the Brahma Samhita, Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochanena, which only with the ointment of love the pure devotees can see Krishna. So even the smaller intelligence doesn't work unless we have a little ointment of love in our eyes, then only you can see Krishna. That touched my heart.
Very nice. Kandarvika, and then Mukharvin.
I was just thinking, Prabhuji, how Prabhupada makes it simple to understand complex concepts even a layman can understand. And not only understanding, but he also instills faith. So for example, Prabhupada says that it's not by your complex education, or you don't have to understand everything to understand Krishna, but you have to be sincere and follow the spiritual master. So that's something that one can put into action right away. And also another thing Prabhupada says is how the desire of a pure devotee has the same potency as the power of the desire of the Lord, and how it's so complex to understand, but it is true. And we can see in the case of Prabhupada that he envisioned and he had a desire to change the whole world at the age of 70, but it was a powerful, but it didn't happen because he's a pure devotee. So I was just thinking how Prabhupada makes it practical and instills.
Were you listening
confidence.
earlier when we talked about the Bhagavad Gita?
Yeah.
You heard it?
In the earlier part, in the middle,
There was
I
a
missed a few.
quotation that Divyanga sent me.
Okay, I
It was especially for you, being the Chad director for the world. Let's see if I can get it back. Here it is. He read this to me when I was on the way here. I said, you better send it to me so I can. Okay. Without faith, there's no question of progress in Krishna consciousness. That faith is created after reading Bhagavad Gita carefully and actually understanding it as it is. Unless one reads Bhagavad Gita, there is no question of faith in Krishna. Usable, right? Okay, nice. Teachings of the Lord Kapila Dev. Mukharvin has a last word, I believe, because we're running down to the last minute. Let's.
Mentioning that after the Janmashtami we were feeling little vacant because so it really thank you for that brilliant verse.
You were having withdrawal symptoms, right? You want to come back and just get as much as possible.
So last 3 days I was not feeling satisfied. Now today I feel okay, it's amazing. And whole chapter was reading was amazing. One particular point I like was that one that you mentioned in the Ritayartham Riti Pratiyeta, like how the Vidyat, the Brahmaji has given the God the Vidya, and that Vidya is Prabhupada explained that the manifestation of the direct order of Supreme, the order of Supreme Personality of Godhead is the manifestation of internal energy, and by energy we can see the Lord face to face. And we can relate that how, and then you refer that how Prabhupada, like first time, second time, and even in the last letter, which we were reading he got the direct order that when he asked what I should do, then spiritual master told, okay, you should, in my opinion, you should try to spread this knowledge in English, and by doing this, you will be doing good to you and all who will assist you. They will all do good for them. So.
Thank you very much. Thank you to everyone who came here for this historic event, and we will attempt such feats very soon, with even more vigor than tonight. Vancha kalpatarishcha kripasanabheva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha.